Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So today I've got a 1997 Squier P-Bass. This one is a made in China version and it's pretty basic, but it's actually a pretty good starter bass. Not only is it missing strings, but it's actually got problems with its electronics. This is how I received it, so we'll do a full video today on repairing the electronics and putting this thing back together. There are a lot of places we could start with this one, but I think I'm going to take the pick guard off first and address the electronics. There are a couple things that I know are wrong. One of them is that this tone control isn't really hanging on by anything, and the pickups have no output, so I suspect there's some kind of a problem with the connection either in the pickups or on the output jack. So let me go ahead and take this off. Well, once I got in here, I was hoping for better, but this is not a good sign. It does have upgraded pots, it has an upgraded cap, and a good switchcraft jack, it looks like, which is nice, but the pickups themselves look like they're intact. I don't think I'm missing any wires. Maybe it's just wired up wrong. I'm going to start over, unwire all of this, clean up some of this copper mess that's sticking out from under the pick guard, and hopefully we get some signal. So now that all this is exposed, you can see what the actual problem was. The output jack was not connected. So just got to really make this a little cleaner and get this resoldered and everything should be fine. Okay, so here's an update. I have been working to clean up some of this copper tape that was overhanging the edge of this pocket. I cleaned up the copper tape that was overhanging the edge of the guard as well, and I went ahead and added a couple of tabs so that these two pieces are going to make contact whenever I get them connected back together with the screws. I also cleaned up all the pots. The pots had a really shiny surface, so I went ahead and sanded those just to make the solder stick this time and to clean up the surface and make it look nice. These are 250K pots. They're solid shaft pots. On all of the parts, I have added one of these 3/8 washers with teeth to the jack, to each of the pots, and each of these pots are set up with US or SAE size nuts and washers. I also cleaned up the capacitor here, and I'm going to reuse that. Now it's just a matter of putting this stuff back together. Okay, skipping ahead just a little bit, I went ahead and mounted my pots and my jack. So I haven't done any wiring yet, but one thing I'll note about this is that I did test the pickup, and the pickup has about an 8.5K resistance. That means it works, and I always, before I get started putting any wiring together, will check the fitment of my pick guard and make sure that none of these components are touching areas that I don't want them to touch, that everything fits correctly. So now I'm going to go ahead and skip to some wiring. I'll do most of that off camera, but I'll show you the results. Alright, well here's where things stand with this P-Bass after doing some wiring. So obviously I twisted up the wires from the pickups just to make them look a little better. Got those wired to the volume pot. Wired the grounds together on the backs of the pots. Wired the tone control and the capacitors up. And got the output jack wired in. Also got this bridge ground wired into the back of one of these pots. There's not a lot to P-Bass wiring. There's only one volume and one tone control, obviously. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. Just time to put this pick guard back on. Okay, I'm obviously not going to put every screw in. I just want to make sure this thing works. So let's hook it up to an amplifier. Sounds like it's working. Let's check the tone control. Yep. Okay, very nice. So I can finish putting these pick guard screws in. All right, well, everything's back together here. Got the knobs back on. I did a little bit of filing on the ends of the frets just to make them nice and smooth and get rid of the little burrs. I'm going to go ahead and oil the fretboard now. I've been using Old English on some of my cheaper guitars, and this one definitely qualifies. Just got a piece of steel wool here, and I'm just kind of going over the fretboard initially, and I'll wipe this coat off as a way to kind of raise some of the dirt from the previous play, and hopefully wipe away that dirt with a paper towel. By the way, if I was anywhere close to the pickups, I would mask those, but this is not getting anywhere near them. Yucky. And now just a light coat of oil. Now that everything's clean, I'm not really saturating this, taking up any excess as I go. All right, well, this has been drying enough that, you know, it's not pooled up on the fretboard anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and install some strings. I'm using a set of previously used strings just to test things out. All right, well, I've got the strings on. I've been doing a little bit of setup, went ahead and set the pickup height. I went ahead and set the action. If you're not familiar with how to set up your bass, I've got a video on Fender's directions on bass setup. And I don't know if it covers the P bass specifically, it may be a jazz bass in the video, but at any rate, it will talk about neck relief, it'll talk about action, it'll talk a little bit probably about pickup height and probably some other settings, but at any rate, after setting this one up, I've discovered a little bit of a problem with it, and I'm still dealing with the electronics on it. So right now it's plugged into an amp and it's not giving me any sound, but if I play with the knob some, see, the volume knob doesn't do anything, but the tone knob, it really seems to be if I push down on the tone knob, I get a connection, and then when I pick up on it, I got nothing. So obviously that tone knob's gonna have to be replaced. There's something going on internally inside of it. I did clean it out before we started, so I know it's not dirty, and I cleaned it out with deoxit, so I know I didn't damage any components in it. And that's why you use used strings whenever you're setting a guitar up for the first time, because if I had to take off a brand new set of strings and possibly ruin them in the process, I would have cried about it, because bass strings are super expensive. So let me go ahead and get the neck and body here separated so I can get the pick guard back off, and hopefully I don't have to take the strings off. Let's just see if this works. So what I've had some success with in the past is just putting a capo at the first fret, then detuning. Then when you get everything detuned, you can separate the neck and the body. Okay, so let's get in here and get at this tone knob. All right, well, nothing's obviously been disconnected. I'm just gonna have to desolder this one and replace it with another one. So let me go see what I can find for parts. I do have a 250K pot. It's not solid shaft. It's not quite the same shaft, but I think it'll work. I had to stop the camera for a second, but I swapped the pot out, swapped the capacitor over to the newer pot. I'm just down to my last connection here, so I just got to solder this ground wire. Let's go ahead and double check that I still have some kind of sound coming out of this thing. Interesting. Well, I have another problem. I think this tip is grounding out on the copper shielding, so I need to flip it around, I believe. Okay, well, I flipped my jack around, bent all the connections in so they don't touch anything. I don't think I'll have that grounding problem now. And I went ahead and reinstalled the original solid shaft tone control just because I felt like it would probably work better than the split shaft, and I actually fully tested it with an ohm meter and it doesn't have any problems. So all those problems were due to this grounding out, and hopefully we can test that here. No matter how much I move it around, it seems to be working. So let's button it back up and see if it's working right. All right, I've set this back in place, so let's reattach the neck. Well, it's back together now. I've got my action set correctly again after putting the neck back on, and everything seems to be working okay. I checked the action, like I said. I checked the neck relief. Pickup height has been set. I think I'm going to call this one done. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me through this project. I know this one is mostly wiring, but they're all a little bit different. I appreciate the likes. I appreciate the comments. Thank you to the subscribers, and I'll see you all next time.